I got really close to being burned at that time.
That's the thing that is pretty much amazing about the Rammstein concerts, you know? The public itself, you see yuppies, as well as your hardcore heavy metal people with their long hair and moshing away at the front of the stage with their leather bands and spikes and stuff like that. So the mixture between the public and the people that went to their concerts was quite not understandable. It's like, how do you get all these different types of scenes involved to something like that? And it was quite amusing because you got your guys as well as wearing your Ralph Lauren polo shirts, going over to wearing their leather vests and whatever you want to call it, military boots or Doc Martens or whatever it was. It was quite amusing because it's tried to try and understand is that how this type of music actually combines these totally two different worlds or completely different worlds all together into one area, just coming to listening to this type of music.
Ja, die Live-Shows waren sicher ein Grund, warum Rammstein so schnell so viel Beachtung gefunden hat. Also am Anfang wurde auch, ich würde mal sagen, gegen jegliche Regeln mit sehr extrem, mit viel Feuer und Pyrotechnik gearbeitet, auch mit sehr martialischen Metallfiguren und großen, auch für damalige Verhältnisse schon sehr, sehr bedeutenden Lichteffekten, fand ich. Und sicherlich ist Show in dieser Form ein wichtiger Aspekt, wenn man zu solchem Erfolg kommen will, oder ist sehr hilfreich, würde ich mal sagen, um so einen Erfolg aufzubauen.
If you look at their shows today, for example, they did a huge show in Berlin in 2001, and they've actually been very particular to take technology to its max and ensure that when the band plays live, that they actually get something that they would not normally expect. It's something that every band actually tries to sell its audience, but I think Rammstein actually managed that they do something which is completely different to the tour that took place before. And the huge controversy again on that front is a safety issue, because I remember in 2001 they played in the arena in Berlin, which is a huge venue where about 8,000 to 10,000 people sometimes can be fit in. And one of the steel plates that were above the stage, it actually fell down and it hurt some of the audience members who had to be transported off into hospital. And the huge discussion back then was how safe are concerts that actually have so much fire. And the band and the crew and the whole management are very, very particular to say that it is completely safe. But you hear about accidents, especially in America recently, where many hundred people died, that it is a very tricky affair. But I think that's also, again, a part of Rammstein and the aura and the mystique that comes along with this band.
None of Rammstein were ready for the transformation into rock stars, and they had never expected to be so commercially successful.
The band themselves, there's no real leader, and there's really no person that actually is the front man. Okay, of course you look at the band and everybody talks about Till Lindemann. He's the guy that's standing in the front, he's the one that's doing all the power up front, and you got the band in the background. But after meeting them personally, you see that when they go to do their interviews, they're actually, well, I'm really not into it today. How about you, Paul? You into doing this? Or Richard, you want to talk to the guys today? So it's actually it's a quite equal status in the band. There's no real leader and there's no real minority in the band.
Rammstein, however, were not fame-struck teenagers that had their feet firmly on the ground. They cultivated normal, stable family lives and worked hard on their sound and musical talents.
Paul's guitar play is very unique. And that comes from feeling big, because he's a very fast player and he doesn't like any solos, any bigger solos. He's a very straight ahead guitar player.
Die anderen Leute, Paul. Paul ist, glaube ich, der, den ich am längsten kenne und Flake nebenbei auch. Paul ist der Antreiber in der Band, so ein bisschen. Eigentlich beide Gitarristen, Richard auch. Wenngleich die auch ein bisschen unterschiedlich vorgehen. Paul geht diffiziler vor und versucht immer alle zusammenzutreiben und irgendwas vorwärts zu bringen. Wogegen Richard sehr gezielt an der Musik arbeitet. Ich glaube oft auch wahrscheinlich sehr abgekapselt für sich selber.
Paul is the guy with the ideas and the guy who is able to make them real on very unconventional ways, you know. So there's nothing. He would never say it does not work. He's thinking over how it will work. You know, that's, I think, his character.
I would say that Till Lindemann, as a singer, he kind of stands out immediately. He's a quiet fellow privately. He has this deep voice. He has a very manly figure. He used to be a professional swimmer. He has a good figure. And he can control things. There's something very mystical about him. Nobody really can grasp him. And I think he's quite particular about that as well.
I remember the first time he came up with this big book, like this big old medicine book with all these pictures and drawings of like illnesses and like sick people, and it was really disgusting actually. But we ended up copying some of the wounds and scars and stuff, and just had a makeup artist do that on their faces. So that's how some of the ideas, like how they approach me.
Also Till ist der Band natürlich die Prägung gibt durch sein Auftreten, durch seine Erscheinung auch schon. Und ich glaube, der war die erste Wahl für einen Sänger in so einer Band, weil er eben so eine Ausstrahlung hat und so eine Statur und so ein Auftreten. Und er ist auch menschlich, ist ein sehr warmherziger und guter Typ, also ein guter Freund, den man sich sehr verlassen kann, muss man mal sagen.
Richard is the guitarist. He's a good-looking fellow, stands on stage. He's quite talkative, he's nice, he plays guitar very well. He's responsible basically for all the riffs. I think he's a very nice guy who you could talk to at any stage.
Richard is a really creative guy too. You know, others, like Paul, for instance, I would say he concentrates much more on the music. Richard does too, but Richard also has a very strong visual idea about the band.
Yeah, of course, I think I know Ollie best, because I played together with him, I think 14 or 15 months, and he's a very quiet guy, very introverted.
Well, Ollie, the bass player, for instance, is a very, very quiet guy. He's very interested in photography. I remember one time when we were in San Francisco, I went with him to get him a camera. He's very interested in that. But then, on the other hand, he's a very quiet, very shy guy.
Olli ist ein sehr ruhiger. Olli kenne ich ja durch das Jahr, wo wir zusammen rumgetourt sind. Ist eigentlich ein sehr ruhiger und sehr zurückhaltender Typ.
Flake is one personality. He plays the keyboards. He's known for one-liners. He is very cynical almost. If you ever interview him, he's got nothing good to say about anything. He has nothing, I mean, that's not making him bad. He's a funny guy. He can even say bad things about the bands that he tours with. And he also says some really fun stories about what goes on behind the scenes, which actually nobody really ever finds out.